So, I mean, think about this. You drop an apple
Right,
and it falls.
right. Gravity.
Exactly. Gravity's absolute. You don't wake up on a Tuesday and just wonder if the laws of physics decided to, like, take the day off.
Yeah, that would be terrifying.
Right. And if you build a bridge and your math is right, that bridge is going to hold weight. But, when you pivot from physics to, say, your own bank account,
Oh, yeah. Whole different story.
it totally is. It feels like that whole predictable universe just shatters. Suddenly you are staring at this landscape of income and investments and credit cards.
Daily spending.
Yeah, daily spending. And it just feels completely chaotic. I mean, we stress about money constantly.
We really do.
It feels like the rules are always changing. Or honestly, worse, like the game is just entirely rigged against us.
Well, I mean, it is the defining anxiety of modern life, right? People look at their finances and they just feel utterly unmoored.
Unmoored is a great word for it.
Yeah, because there is this assumption that wealth is dictated by luck or inheritance.
Or like some secret algorithmic code that only, a few people on Wall Street possess.
Exactly. So when people look at their own stagnant savings, they feel helpless. They feel like they are floating in muddy waters without a compass.
But what if I told you that the rules of money actually are just like the law of gravity?
Okay, color me intrigued.
Right, like universal, unchanging, and totally predictable. Because that is our mission today. We are taking a deep dive into the foundational principles of wealth building.
And the sources for this are just fascinating.
They really are. We're looking at excerpts from this 1920s classic by George S. Clason called The Richest Man in Babylon.
Such a classic.
It is. And these sources, they detail a series of parables set 6,000 years ago in ancient Babylon, which at the time was the wealthiest city on the face of the earth.
By far. Famed for the profound financial wisdom of its citizens.
Right. So, okay, let's unpack this, because my first instinct when I saw this source material was, frankly, profound skepticism.
I don't blame you.
I mean, we were talking about a book written a full century ago, right? Detailing parables about a civilization that existed 6 millennia ago.
It's a massive time gap.
A huge gap. How on earth can a guy in a chariot paying for things in copper coins have the exact answers to the financial anxieties you and I have today with, digital wallets and inflation?
Well, it sounds counterintuitive until you isolate the one variable that hasn't changed in 6,000 years.
Which is?
Human psychology.
Oh, wow. Ugh.
Right? While the setting is undeniably ancient, I mean, we are dealing with clay tablets and kings and walled cities, but the psychology of money is entirely static.
So, like, greed is still greed.
Exactly. Human desires, our profound tendency toward procrastination, the blinding temptation of quick riches, it's all the same.
The agonizing struggle to balance what we earn with what we want to spend right this second.
That is constant across the millennia. An ancient Babylonian staring at a beautiful new imported tunic experienced the exact same dopamine rush as someone today looking at an online shopping cart.
And the exact same financial guilt right after buying it, I bet.
Oh, absolutely.
That makes a lot of sense. The technology changes, but the brain wiring doesn't.
Never does.
So, before we get into the actual how-to of building wealth, like the actual mechanics of it, we have to start with the psychology of being broke.
Which is a very real place to start.
We need to talk about the universal frustration that drives people to even seek out financial wisdom in the first place.
And the sources illustrate this perfectly with two characters, Bansir and Kobbi.
Yes, let's set the scene here. Paint a picture of Babylon for us. What was it actually like?
Oh, Babylon wasn't just wealthy. It was a city defined by stark, almost shocking contrasts.
How so?
If you were to walk through it, you would see dazzling, incomprehensible wealth. We are talking about the king's palace, the legendary hanging gardens.
Just massive engineering marvels, right?
Huge. Irrigation canals bringing life to the desert, towering temples reaching into the sky. But literally, in the shadow of those monuments, pressed right up against the walls of the elite, you had the squalor of the working class.
Wow.
Extreme opulence and dire poverty sharing the exact same dusty streets.
Which, if we're being honest, doesn't sound far off from walking through downtown Manhattan or San Francisco today.
Not at all.
You have billionaires in penthouses and people struggling to afford groceries on the sidewalk below.
It's the exact same dynamic.
So we zoom in on one specific guy in this working class, Bansir.
The chariot builder.
Right, he's a chariot builder. And the text describes him sitting stolidly on the low wall surrounding his small property.
Just completely checked out.
Yeah, he is completely ignoring his unfinished chariot. He is ignoring his wife, who keeps, like, glancing at the empty meal bag and then looking at him expectantly.
That's a heavy kind of pressure.
It is. He is just sitting there sweating under the merciless Euphrates Valley sun, totally paralyzed by this suffocating discouragement.
Because he is experiencing a full-blown existential crisis centered entirely around his finances.
Yeah.
He is physically exhausted, sure, but more importantly, he is spiritually drained by his economic reality.
And right at that moment of despair, his best friend walks up.
The Kobbi.
Kobbi, the musician. And Kobbi is having a great day.
Oh, he's having a wonderful day.
He is playing his lyre, feeling good, and he approaches Bansir to ask a favor. He wants to borrow 2 humble shekels so he can attend a nobleman's feast that evening.
And Kobbi just casually assumes his friend is flush with cash.
Right, because Bansir is the hardest working chariot builder in the city.
Exactly.
But this leads to an incredibly painful interaction. Bansir has to look at his oldest friend and admit that his purse is completely empty.
It's brutal.
He says, and this is a heartbreaking line, that if he had 2 shekels, it would be his entire fortune. And no one lends out their entire fortune.
Well, what?
And that admission sparks this core realization for both of them. Bansir tells Kobbi about a dream he just had.
The dream where he was rich.
Yeah. In the dream, he was a man of means. He had a heavy purse. He was tossing coins to beggars with careless ease.
Buying expensive finery for his wife.
All the stuff he wishes he could do. And most importantly, he felt totally unafraid of the future.
That's the real luxury, isn't it?
But then he woke up. The purse was empty. The meal bag was empty. And the contrast between the freedom of the dream and the prison of his reality just made him incredibly rebellious.
And it forces a moment of deep reckoning between the two men. They really start analyzing their lives.
Because they realize they are free men.
Right. They aren't slaves hauling water for the king's gardens under the whip. They have agency.
And they have worked their entire lives. I mean, Bansir doesn't just build chariots. He makes the finest, most staunch, reliable chariots in all of Babylon.
And Kobbi doesn't just play music. He plays the lyre so beautifully that no one in the city can match his skill.
They are the absolute best at what they do.
They have poured decades of energy into perfecting their respective trades, yet they are living hand to mouth. After half a lifetime of grueling, honest labor, they have zero gold to show for it.
Okay, hold on. I need to stop you there. Because the prevailing wisdom we are all taught from childhood is that if you work hard and you become the absolute best at your job, wealth naturally follows.
Right, the whole meritocracy myth.
Yeah. Are you saying that being the best at your job doesn't automatically make you financially secure?
It absolutely does not. And that is the painful truth Bansir and Kobbi are colliding with here.
Wow.
We are conditioned to believe that mastery of a profession equals financial success. But those are 2 entirely different things.
I used to think of it like being an incredibly skilled driver in a ridiculously fast car.
Okay, I like that.
You perfect your shifting, your steering, your braking. You are literally the best driver on the road. But you have absolutely no idea what destination you are driving toward, and you have no map.
So you're just going fast in circles.
Right. You are just burning fuel, going incredibly fast, but getting nowhere geographically.
That's a great analogy.
But honestly, I think a better way to look at it is like building a house.
Oh, definitely.
You can be the greatest carpenter in the history of the world. You can build the most beautiful, intricate walls and a stunning roof. But if you build that masterpiece on top of a sinkhole...
Because you know nothing about geology.
Exactly. Because you know nothing about geology or foundations, the house is going to collapse. Bansir and Kobbi are master carpenters building their financial lives on a sinkhole.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, mastering a craft generates income. Mastering wealth dictates what happens to that income once it arrives.
That is such an important distinction.
It really is. Bansir and Kobbi succeeded at their trades because that is what they focused their time and energy on studying. They failed at wealth because they never even sought to learn its laws.
I just assumed it would happen.
Right. They operated on the assumption that wealth was just a magical byproduct of hard work. Or, perhaps a capricious gift from the gods.
Bansir actually says that out loud. He says he always hoped the gods would recognize his worthy deeds and just bestow prosperity upon him as a reward.
Which is such a common trap.
But sitting on that wall, he finally realizes they never will. Hope is not a financial strategy.
No, it is not.
So they decide to change tactics. They remember their childhood friend, Arkad.
Arkad.
They grew up with him, played with him. But now, Arkad is universally known as the richest man in Babylon.
He is so wealthy that the king actually seeks his financial aid for city projects.
The king goes to him for money. That's next level.
It really is.
So Bansir and Kobbi decide, well, let's just put our pride aside and go ask him what his secret is.
Which is a profound pivot for them. They stop waiting for a miracle, they stop blaming the economy of Babylon, and they finally seek an education.
And it is important to note how Arkad receives them, right?
Very important. He is incredibly gracious. He doesn't look down on them from some ivory tower.
But he does give them a very blunt, uncompromising truth.
He does. He tells his old friends that if they haven't acquired more than a bare existence in all these years, it is because they either failed to learn the laws that govern the building of wealth, or they simply do not observe them.
Arkad completely dismisses the idea of, like, fickle fate. He says that sudden, unearned wealth, like finding a treasure or winning a lottery, usually ruins people.
Almost always.
It turns them into wanton spenders who quickly go broke and end up miserable.
Right.
Or it turns them into terrified misers who hoard their gold because they know deep down they lack the ability to ever replace it.
They know it was a fluke.
Exactly. Real wealth, he argues, is a power. It is a skill set. And he had to learn how to wield it from scratch.
Which brings us to Arkad's own origin story, the mentorship of Algamish.
Yes. Arkad wasn't born into money at all. He was the son of a humble merchant, part of a massive family.
Meaning there was zero inheritance coming his way.
None. He started out at the absolute bottom, working as a scribe in the city's Hall of Records.
Which sounds like a terribly tedious job.
Oh, his job was carving cuneiform into clay tablets, hour after hour, day after day. He worked incredibly hard, just like Bansir, but he had exactly the same result. Nothing to show for it.
Every single copper coin he earned went immediately to food, clothing, and penance to the gods.
Then comes the inciting incident of his life. Algamish enters the picture.
Algamish is a character.
He really is. He is a very wealthy, very intimidating moneylender. He comes into the Hall of Records and orders a copy of the Ninth Law.
And he is demanding.
Yeah, he needs it carved into clay in 2 days. But the law is incredibly long and complex. So when Algamish returns after 2 days, Arkad isn't finished.
And Algamish is furious. He is ready to have Arkad punished.
But Arkad shows some serious grit here. Instead of cowering, he looks at this powerful billionaire, essentially, and strikes a bargain.
Gutsy move.
Very. He says, "You are a very rich man. Tell me how I may also become rich, and all night I will carve upon the clay, and when the sun rises, it shall be completed."
And Algamish is taken aback, but he respects the audacity, so he agrees to the trade.
And the sources go out of their way to detail the sheer physical toll of this night, right?
They really do. Arkad's back pained him terribly from hunching over the clay. The smell of the burning wick from his lamp gave him a splitting headache.
His eyes blurred so badly he could barely see the symbols he was carving.
But he pushed through the agony and finished the tablets just as the sun came up. He paid a deep, visceral, physical price for this wisdom.
He earned it. So Algamish comes back, sees the finished work, and he delivers the fundamental rule.
The absolute bedrock of all personal finance.
He looks at this exhausted young scribe and says, "A part of all you earn is yours to keep."
Which, on the surface, sounds incredibly simplistic, almost insultingly simple.
That was exactly my reaction. And it was Arkad's reaction, too. Arkad is confused. He looks at Algamish and says, "But all I earn is mine to keep, is it not? I earned it."
And this is where Algamish delivers a harsh, paradigm-shifting reality check.
Lay it on us.
He asks Arkad to break down his spending. He says, "Do you not pay the garment maker for your clothes? Do you not pay the sandal maker for your shoes? Do you not pay the farmer for what you eat?"
It's all going out the door.
Algamish calls him a fool and says, "You pay to everyone but yourself. Dullard, you labor for others."
Dullard. Ouch.
Right. He explains that if you spend everything you earn, you are essentially no different than a slave working just for what your master gives you to eat and wear. You are generating wealth, but you are systematically transferring 100% of it to other people.
Think about how aggressively true that is today.
Oh, it hurts to think about.
When your paycheck hits your bank account on Friday, what happens? You pay the landlord or the mortgage company? You pay the electric company?
You pay the grocery store.
You pay Apple for your phone? You pay Netflix? You pay the car loan? If your account drops to zero before the next paycheck, you literally kept none of it for you.
You acted as a conduit to move money from your employer to various corporations.
That is such a depressing but accurate way to frame it. Algamish is telling Arkad that you have to prioritize yourself as a creditor.
Yes. He recommends saving at least 1/10 of everything you earn. He says wealth is like a tree that grows from a tiny seed, and that first copper you save is the seed.
So Arkad decides to test the theory. For a whole year, he painstakingly hides away 1 out of every 10 copper coins he earns.
And he notes something fascinating during this time. He manages to get along just as well without that 10th.
The deprivation isn't nearly as bad as he feared.
Exactly. He survives. He adapts. But when Algamish comes back a year later to check on his protege's progress, Arkad proudly reveals what he did with his savings. And it turns out he made a catastrophic mistake.
I love this detail because it is so incredibly relatable. Arkad saved his money. He planted the seed. Great. But then he tells Algamish that he took his entire year of savings and gave it to a guy named Asmor.
And who is Asmor?
Asmor is a brickmaker, and Asmor is traveling to the coastal city of Tyre. Arkad gave him the money to buy rare Phoenician jewels so they could bring them back to Babylon, sell them to the wealthy elite, and split the massive profit.
And Algamish doesn't praise his entrepreneurial spirit. He immediately scolds him.
Obviously.
He says, every fool must learn, but why trust the knowledge of a brickmaker about jewels?
It is the exact equivalent of asking your plumber for cryptocurrency advice, or like getting your stock tips from your Uber driver.
Right. You wouldn't go to the bread maker to ask about the alignment of the stars. You would go to the astrologer.
Unsurprisingly, the Phoenicians saw this brickmaker coming from a mile away and scammed him. They sold him worthless pieces of polished glass.
Devastating.
Arkad's entire year of grueling saving, all that sacrifice, is gone in an instant because he took investment advice from someone who had absolutely no expertise in that specific field.
It is a devastating blow, but Arkad proves his resilience here. He doesn't declare the system broken. He realizes he broke the rule of seeking wise counsel.
So he starts over. He plants another seed. He saves his 10th for another entire year.
And this time, when Algamish returns, Arkad has a different story. He says he lent his savings to Agar, the shield maker.
Okay, now we're talking.
Agar uses the money to buy bronze in bulk for his business, and he pays Arkad rental interest every 4th month for the use of the capital.
That is a significantly smarter investment. He lent money to a guy who works with bronze every day to buy bronze.
Much better.
But then Algamish asks a follow-up question. He asks, what do you do with the rental interest? And Arkad puffs out his chest and proudly says that he spends it on great feasts with honey, spiced cake, and wine. And he bought himself a fancy scarlet tunic.
To which Algamish just laughs out loud and says, you do eat the children of your savings.
What a phrase.
It is one of the most evocative metaphors in the entire source text. Algamish explains that your savings, your principal, is a golden army. And the interest that principal earns, those extra coins you get back, are the children of your army.
And if you eat the children?
If you consume the offspring the second they are born, if you eat the children, how can you ever expect your army to grow? You can't.
You have to let the children grow up and earn, and then let the children's children earn.
This is the ancient articulation of compound interest.
It's so vivid, because think about it. If you put money in a modern index fund, and it pays out a dividend, and you immediately use that dividend to buy a coffee or a new pair of shoes, you just ate the child of your savings.
Yep. That dollar can never work for you again.
First, you have to build an army of golden slaves.
Ooh.
Then and only then, once the army is massive and self-sustaining, can you enjoy the rich banquets without regret.
And Arkad takes this to heart. He finally masters the cycle. He saves his 10th, he seeks wise counsel, he relentlessly compounds his interest, and over the years he becomes wildly successful.
So successful that Algamish, near the end of his life, actually makes Arkad a partner in managing his own vast estate.
Arkad shares this entire journey with Bansir, Kobbi, and the other men who came to seek his wisdom. He dispels the myth of willpower, too.
Oh, how so?
He tells them that willpower isn't some magical, superhuman strength that some people have and others don't. Willpower is simply the unflinching purpose to carry a specific task you set for yourself to fulfillment.
It's discipline in small things.
Exactly. He advises them to wake up every morning and say, a part of all I earn is mine to keep until it is burned into their subconscious.
Okay, so Arkad figured it out for himself. But this raises a massive socioeconomic question.
Which is?
If one guy can figure this out from scratch, why is the rest of the city starving? Why is the wealth concentrated in the hands of a few, while master craftsmen like Bansir can't feed their families.
This is exactly the crisis King Sargon realizes when he returns to Babylon from a long military campaign. He looks around and realizes there is a massive economic depression.
The king built all these incredible public works, right? The canals, the great temples, and he paid the workers in gold. But now that the projects are finished, the gold has vanished from the public.
So the king summons his chancellor to ask where all the money went.
And what does the chancellor say?
The chancellor explains it plainly. He says the gold filtered through the fingers of the people as quickly as goat's milk through a strainer.
Goat's milk through a strainer. Wow.
It all naturally pooled into the hands of a very few rich men who knew how to trap it.
The king asks why the people couldn't hold on to it, and the chancellor says because they don't know how to keep it. You can't condemn the successful men for knowing how to manage money.
Right. They earned that knowledge.
And you can't strip it from them just to give it back to people who will lose it again. But you can teach the rest of the citizens the same skills.
So King Sargon does something unprecedented. He summons Arkad, the richest of them all, and decrees that Arkad must teach his methods to a pilot group of 100 men in the Temple of Learning.
The goal is for these 100 men to then go out and teach the rest of Babylon, creating a financially literate civilization.
Arkad agrees. He gathers the 100 men, and over 7 days he teaches them what he calls the 7 cures for a lean purse. This is the absolute mechanical meat of the philosophy.
Let's break these down one by one. Cure 1 is start thy purse to fattening.
This is the foundational law he learned from Algamish.
Arkad uses a great analogy here with an egg merchant. He asks one of the students, if you have a basket and you put 10 eggs in that basket every morning, but you only take 9 eggs out every evening to eat or sell, what eventually happens?
The student says, well, eventually the basket overflows.
Exactly. It is the mathematical certainty of saving 10% of your income. For every 10 coins you put in your purse, take out only 9 to spend.
But immediately, the class protests. And their protest leads directly into Cure 2, which is control thy expenditures.
What do they protest?
The students in the Temple of Learning argue, how can a man keep 1/10 of all he earns when all the coins he earns are not enough for his necessary expenses?
Yes.
They are saying, I literally cannot save. My survival bills eat everything I make.
Which is exactly what people say today. I would love to save 10%, but my rent, my car payment, and my groceries take 100% of my paycheck. There is no mathematical room.
But Arkad reveals a devastating psychological truth here. He looks at the 100 men. He points out that they all earn different amounts. Some are simple laborers, some are skilled artisans.
Some have small families, some have huge families to feed.
And all their purses are equally empty. Why? How can the guy making twice as much as the laborer be just as broke?
Why is that?
Because what we call necessary expenses will always grow to equal our income unless we actively, consciously protest to the contrary.
It is the lifestyle creep treadmill.
Exactly.
We've all experienced this. You get a promotion. You get a 15% raise. Do you save that 15%?
Almost never.
Never.
Right.
Suddenly, you convince yourself that because you are a manager now, you need a nicer apartment. Or you need to stop bringing your lunch and start buying that $15 salad every day.
Or you deserve to lease a better car.
Right. Your income went up, but your savings rate stayed at absolute zero. Your definition of a necessity magically expanded to consume your new wealth.
So Arkad tells the men they have to rigorously separate their true necessities from their casual desires. He tells them to list every expense and cut out everything that isn't absolutely essential for survival and basic comfort until the 90% budget balances.
And one of the students, this guy dressed in a very flashy red and gold robe, actually rebels against this idea.
He says a budget makes him a slave.
Right. He compares it to being a pack-ass carrying a burden of restrictions. He argues he wants the right to enjoy life now.
Arkad dismantles that argument brilliantly. He says, think about a pack-ass going on a journey across the desert. If the donkey packed its own burden, would it pack jewels and heavy gold?
No. It would pack hay, grain, and water.
Exactly. A budget is not a restriction imposed by an outside force. It is a spotlight you turn on yourself. It helps you prioritize your true, deeply cherished, long-term desires over your fleeting, casual wishes.
It defends your growing purse from your own impulse control failures.
That's a great way to put it.
Once you are saving and budgeting, you move to the growth phase. Cure 3 is make thy gold multiply.
This is all about putting the treasure to labor, which we touched on with the shield maker. But here, Arkad goes deeper to explain the staggering math of compounding time.
He shares the story of a farmer who saved just 10 pieces of silver when his son was born. He gave it to a moneylender at a rate of 25% interest, compounded every 4 years.
Now, 25% over 4 years is roughly a 6% annual return, which is very comparable to modern historical stock market returns.
So it's totally realistic.
Very. And the farmer told the lender not to pay him the interest, but to add the interest back to the principal. He explicitly decided not to eat the children of his savings.
The math here is what people struggle to conceptualize, because human brains think linearly, but money compounds exponentially.
It does. When the boy turned 20, the farmer went to check on the money. The original 10 pieces of silver had become 30.5 pieces.
Tripled.
The farmer told his son the money was there, but the son didn't need it yet, so they left it alone. By the time the son was 50 years old, the father had passed away, and the son went to collect the account.
What was it at?
Those original 10 pieces of silver had exploded into 167 pieces. It multiplied itself nearly 17 times over, purely through the mechanics of reinvested interest and time.
It's incredible. Time is the heavy lifter in wealth building. But, as Cure 4 warns, you have to protect that growing snowball.
Cure 4 is guard thy treasures from loss.
Arkad warns the class that misfortune loves a shining mark.
Such a great quote.
The moment you actually accumulate a little bit of money, the temptation to swing for the fences kicks in. You will be approached by friends, family, and charlatans with highly plausible, incredibly romantic projects that promise massive, immediate returns.
He returns to his own painful mistake with Asmer, the brickmaker here. He warns against usurious rates of return. He describes these get-rich-quick schemes as deceitful sirens that sing sweetly to lure the unwary onto the rocks of loss and remorse.
The absolute first principle of investing isn't maximizing returns, it is the security of your principal.
Because if you lose the principal, you lose the golden army. And the compounding cycle dies instantly. You must avoid risk. You must seek advice from those who handle money daily. If an investment seems too good to be true, it mathematically is.
So we've covered saving, budgeting, compounding, and protecting. Cures 5 and 6 shift the focus from the portfolio to your physical life and your legacy.
Cure 5 is make of thy dwelling a profitable investment.
Basically, the ancient debate of renting versus owning. Arkad argues that paying an exacting landlord every single month for your entire life leaves you with absolutely nothing to show for it when you are old.
But if you borrow money to build your own house, every payment you make goes toward your own equity.
And he doesn't just focus on the financial equity, right?
No, he emphasizes the psychological dividends of ownership. He talks about the joy of eating figs from your own trees, plucking grapes from your own vines.
Having a patch of clean earth for your wife to grow herbs and your children to play in.
It puts confidence in a person's heart. It creates a psychological stability that fuels greater effort behind all their other endeavors, while simultaneously capping and eventually eliminating their long-term housing costs.
Then there is Cure 6, ensure a future income. This is preparing for the reality of old age when you can no longer physically work and providing for your family if you pass away unexpectedly.
He tells the story of Ansan the sandal maker, who saved just 2 pieces of silver every single week for 8 years. Through the power of consistency and compounding, it yielded a massive 1,040 pieces.
Wow. Arkad even conceptually prophesies the invention of modern life insurance, doesn't he?
He does. He talks about how society should create a system where many people pay in a small sum regularly to provide a handsome sum for the family of any member who passes on.
The core lesson is you cannot assume you will always have the energy or the health to work. You must provide in advance.
Which brings us to the final cure. Cure 7, increase thy ability to earn.
This is arguably the most dynamic cure because it shifts focus from managing the gold you have to expanding the human capital that generates the gold.
Arkad tells the class about a young man who came to him begging for a loan because his earnings simply couldn't cover his expenses anymore.
And what was the young man's excuse?
The young man complained bitterly that he had asked his master for a raise 6 times in 2 months and was rejected every time.
I mean, going to your boss 6 times in 8 weeks to demand more money without offering any new skills is certainly persistent, but it's wildly tone-deaf.
It shows a complete misunderstanding of how value works. Arkad uses this young man to explain the difference between a wish and a goal. He says general desires like I want to be rich or I want to raise are weak and ineffective.
They don't provide a roadmap.
Exactly. Tangible desires like I want to earn 5 extra pieces of gold this month create intense focus. Once you have a specific tangible goal, it forces you to answer the operative question.
This raises an important question, though. How do I actually tangibly increase my value to the marketplace?
And the answer is by perfecting your craft. Just as Arkad didn't just carve clay tablets, he studied the men who were faster than him, he learned to carve cleaner lines, and he made himself indispensable.
Arkad says, the more of wisdom we know, the more we may earn. The artisan must learn to use better tools. The merchant must seek better goods to sell.
You have to be in the front rank of progress, not standing still complaining that you aren't paid enough for doing the exact same thing you did 5 years ago.
Continual personal development, reading, learning, paying your debts promptly, and carrying yourself with self-respect. That is the ultimate engine for wealth generation.
So those are the 7 cures. Save 10%, control expenditures through budgeting, multiply the gold through compound interest, guard the principal from risk, own your home, ensure your future, increase your ability to earn.
They are incredibly mechanical, deeply rational rules.
Very rational.
Okay, but here's where I have to play devil's advocate.
Go for it.
If these rules are so simple, so rational, and so mathematically proven, why doesn't everyone just do them?
That is the million-dollar question.
Right. If it's as simple as gravity, why is the world still full of people struggling with debt? We have to shift from the mechanics of money to the psychological barriers that stop us from executing the mechanics. And the sources address this beautifully in a debate about luck.
They do. The sources take us back to Babylon's Temple of Learning, which was this amazing open forum. It wasn't just a classroom. It was a place where the humblest slave could stand up and debate a prince or a wealthy merchant.
Such a cool concept.
Arkad is leading a discussion, and a cloth weaver stands up and announces that he found a purse full of gold on the street that very day.
Talk about a good day.
He is thrilled. But he wants to know how to make that happen again. He wants the class to debate how to attract the goddess of good luck, Ashtar.
Naturally, the moment someone brings up luck, a young man in the back immediately brings up gambling.
Of course.
He starts talking about the gaming tables, the dice, and the chariot races. He passionately talks about betting on the Nineveh Greys to beat the Babylon Bays in the races, hoping the goddess will smile on him and multiply his wager.
But Arkad dismantles the illusion of luck in gambling using pure mathematics.
How does he do it?
He points out that the gamekeeper, the casino, in modern terms, always has the mathematical edge. If you play the cubes, the dice, you might have 5 chances to lose and only 4 chances to win based on how the payout structure is designed.
The house always wins.
Always. The game is explicitly designed for the keeper to profit over time and for the player to lose. The goddess of luck does not operate in casinos. She does not override math.
Arkad challenges the room, saying he doesn't know a single successful man in all of Babylon who built his foundational wealth at the gaming tables.
So the group realizes that gambling is a dead end. They pivot the discussion. They define true luck not as random chance, like finding a purse, but as seizing profitable business transactions when they appear.
And they realize that missing these transactions is the real tragedy. An elderly merchant stands up and tells a story that perfectly illustrates this.
What's the story?
When he was a young man, just starting out, his father urged him to invest in a syndicate with a friend's son. The plan was to pool their money, buy a tract of barren, worthless land outside the city, build massive water wheels to irrigate it using the river, and then sell the newly fertile plots for a massive profit.
It was a brilliant, highly actionable, and highly profitable plan. And the elderly merchant, as a young man, only had to commit 1/10 of his earnings to join the enterprise. The risk was low, the potential reward was astronomical.
But he didn't do it.
Why not?
And the reason why is so incredibly human. He didn't invest because the tradesmen from the East had just brought in these beautiful, rich new robes.
Oh, wow.
And the young merchant and his wife looked at these robes and decided they absolutely had to have them right then. He told the syndicate he would join later, delayed his decision to invest, bought the robes instead.
And let me guess, the syndicate succeeded.
The Waterwheel Syndicate went on to become massively profitable without him.
It is a textbook case of hyperbolic discounting. He chose instant, fleeting gratification, the robes, over a foundational, long-term investment. He discounted the future value because the present desire was so bright.
And then another man in the crowd, a livestock buyer, stands up and tells a remarkably similar story of a missed opportunity, but with a different psychological trap.
The livestock buyer says he was returning to Babylon one night, but he was late, and the city gates were already locked. As he's waiting outside, an old farmer approaches him in the dark.
And the farmer is desperate, right?
Yes, his wife is deathly ill back in their village, and he needs gold immediately to pay for her care. So the farmer offers to sell his entire flock of 900 sheep to the buyer at a massive, unbelievable discount, just so he can get the gold and run back home.
It is the deal of a lifetime. The buyer is an expert, he knows sheep, he knows the price is an absolute steal, and he has the gold in his purse to buy them right then and there.
But he doesn't do it. It's dark, the sheep are restless, milling around in the dust. The buyer gets stubborn. He refuses to pay the farmer that night, insisting that it's too dark to count 900 sheep accurately, and he won't part with his gold until daylight when he can verify the exact number.
And we all know what happens next. By dawn, the city gates open, and it turns out Babylon is bracing for a siege. Food is suddenly incredibly scarce. 4 other rival livestock buyers rush out of the gates looking for meat, see the farmer, and they buy the sheep for 3 times the price the farmer was asking the night before.
The cautious buyer lost out on a fortune?
A Syrian man in the crowd wildly waves his hands and identifies the exact psychological flaw at play in both of these stories. He points at the men and calls them procrastinators.
Opportunity came, it knocked loudly, but they delayed.
But hold on, let's analyze that, because I know what you're thinking.
Let's hear it.
Exactly. I have a massive problem with this conclusion. Because 10 minutes ago, we were talking about Cure 4, where Arkad explicitly told us to guard our treasures from loss. He told us to be extremely cautious, to avoid risk, to not rush into things.
Right.
But here, the sheep buyer is literally being painted as a fool for being cautious. He just wanted to count the sheep before handing over his life savings in the pitch black. If someone offers you a deal in the dark that seems too good to be true, aren't you supposed to wait? How do you balance being cautious with seizing opportunity? Which is it?
That is the exact friction point, and it requires parsing the difference between due diligence and analysis paralysis.
Okay, explain that.
The critical difference lies in the expertise and the internal dialogue of the buyer. The buyer was not a novice. He knew livestock. He knew the current market value of sheep. And he knew the farmer was offering a legitimate, incredible deal driven by a real emergency, not a scam.
So his hesitation wasn't about guarding his treasure.
No, it was about the psychological pain of parting with his money. It was stubbornness masquerading as caution. Ah, okay. So he used the darkness as an excuse to avoid pulling the trigger.
Precisely. An old saddle maker in the crowd actually points this out. He says our first judgment, when based on our own expertise, is often our best. But human beings are inherently prone to vacillate. We second-guess ourselves. We delay, hoping the decision will somehow become easier tomorrow.
We have to protect ourselves from our own tendency to delay. When your expertise tells you the bargain is wise, you must act decisively.
The Syrian man sums it up perfectly. He says opportunity is a haughty goddess who wastes no time with those who are unprepared. Action attracts a goddess of luck. Procrastination is the invisible enemy that drives your profits away.
You can know all 7 cures, but if you procrastinate on implementing them, you will stay broke.
Which brings us to the ultimate synthesis of everything we've discussed today. The sources provide a final generational story to prove that these laws are truly universal. They aren't just Arkad's personal luck, and they aren't immune to the folly of youth.
It is the story of Arkad's son, Nomasir. This is where the story gets incredibly compelling. In ancient Babylon, just like today, the custom was for the sons of wealthy men to just live in luxury with their parents and wait for their inheritance.
The classic trust fund baby syndrome.
But Arkad, being the wise man he is, refuses to do this. He knows that giving wealth to someone who hasn't learned the laws of wealth is a curse. So he devises the ultimate test for his son.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Arkad calls Nomasir before him and gives him 2 items, 1 heavy bag of gold and 1 clay tablet, carved with what he calls the 5 laws of gold.
And he tells Nomasir he must leave Babylon. He sends him away to the city of Nineveh for 10 years.
The mandate is simple, right? Go out into the world, prove you can become a man, and prove you can handle wealth wisely.
If after 10 years you return having multiplied the gold, you inherit my entire estate. If you return empty-handed, I will give my estate to the priests.
It's the ancient equivalent of giving an 18-year-old $1 million and a textbook on financial literacy, dropping them in a new city and saying, see you in a decade.
Sink or swim.
Will he choose to rely on the money, or will he rely on the manual? Nomasir, being young, arrogant, and inexperienced, completely ignores the clay tablet. He tosses it in his bag and doesn't even bother to read it.
He has a bag of gold. He thinks he is invincible.
And disaster strikes almost immediately. On the caravan ride to Nineveh, Nomasir falls in with some men who are very friendly, very complimentary. They tell him about this incredible horse in Nineveh that can run faster than the wind.
And they convince Nomasir to place a massive wager on this horse in an upcoming race.
Nomasir, thinking he's about to double his fortune on day 1, agrees. Of course, the men are con artists. The race is rigged. The horse loses, and Nomasir loses a massive chunk of his father's gold before he even settles in the city.
He broke the rule about gambling and the rule about trusting tricksters, but he still has some gold left. So he arrives in Nineveh, and he partners up with the guy he just met to buy a merchant shop. He thinks, I'll be a businessman.
But it turns out his new partner is a lazy, foolish spender who drains the business's coffers to fund his lifestyle.
The business collapses. Nomasir loses the rest of the gold. He hits absolute rock bottom. He is in a foreign city, totally broke. He has to sell his fine horses, he sells his slave, and he sells his extra robes just to buy scraps of food to survive.
It is only then, in the depths of poverty and despair, sitting in a rented hovel, that Nomasir finally remembers the clay tablet his father gave him. He unwraps the silk, reads the 5 laws of gold for the very first time, and the realization washes over him.
He realizes that if he had sought wisdom first, his gold would not have been lost. He had the answers in his bag the entire time, but his ego prevented him from looking at them.
So, humbled and starving, he gets to work. He gets a grueling, punishing job managing a slave crew that is building the massive outer wall of Nineveh. But this time, he applies the laws on the tablet.
From his meager wages, he saves his first copper coin. Then he saves a silver coin. He guards his principal fiercely.
As his savings grow, he seeks out wise advice. He doesn't partner with flashy strangers anymore. He partners with his boss, the slave master, a man who deeply understands labor and money, and a group of other conservative, wise investors.
They do their research and realize that Nineveh is building these massive walls, and they will soon need huge bronze gates to secure the city. But the king hasn't procured the metal yet.
So this syndicate pools their gold, they send a caravan to the distant copper and tin mines, and they bring massive quantities of the metal back to Nineveh.
They anticipated the market demand. When the king is finally ready to build the gates, Nomasir and his partners are the only ones with the necessary metal, and they sell it to the city for a massive, highly calculated profit.
Nomasir repeats this process, compounding his wealth over and over. 10 years pass, and Nomasir returns to his father's house in Babylon. A huge feast is prepared. He stands before Arkad, and he doesn't just hand back the original bag of gold.
He places 3 heavy bags of gold on the floor.
He says, 1 bag is to replace the original bag I lost because of my foolishness, and the other 2 bags are given in exchange for the clay tablet.
No.
Nomasir publicly declares to his father that he considers the wisdom carved into that clay to be of infinitely greater value than the gold itself.
Because without wisdom, gold is quickly lost by those who have it. But with wisdom, gold can be secured and multiplied even by those who start with absolutely nothing.
It's the ultimate vindication of Arkad's teachings. Nomasir actually reads the 5 laws from the tablet aloud to the room. Let's break those 5 laws down because they perfectly summarize the mechanics and the psychology of everything we've discussed in this deep dive.
They are the distillation of the 7 cures into absolute laws. Law 1, gold comes gladly and increasing quantity to any man who will put by not less than 1/10 of his earnings to create an estate for his future and his family. That is the foundational rule of accumulation. Pay yourself first.
Law 2. Gold labors diligently and contentedly for the wise owner who finds for it profitable employment, multiplying even as the flocks of the field. That is the law of compounding. Your money must work as hard as you do.
Law 3, gold clings to the protection of the cautious owner who invests it under the advice of men wise in its handling. This is the law of risk mitigation. Seek experts, not brickmakers buying jewels.
Law 4. Gold slips away from the man who invests it in businesses or purposes with which he is not familiar or which are not approved by those skilled in its keep. This is what happened to Nomasir when he bought a merchant shop he knew nothing about with a partner he hadn't vetted.
And finally, Law 5, gold flees the man who would force it to impossible earnings, or who followeth the alluring advice of tricksters and schemers, or who trusts it to his own inexperience and romantic desires in investment.
This is the rigged horse race.
This is the get-rich-quick crypto scam. It is the mathematical certainty that greed destroys wealth.
It is so explicit, it leaves absolutely no room for confusion or ambiguity. Whether you live in ancient Babylon trading shekels or you live in a modern metropolis today trading index funds on your phone, the mechanics of wealth are identical. The psychology of greed, fear, and discipline hasn't shifted a millimeter.
Gravity remains gravity. If you drop the apple, it falls. If you spend 100% of your income, you will be broke. If you save 10% and compound it, you will build wealth.
You know, at the end of the source material, the story of Nomasir is actually being told by a merchant named Kalabab, to a group of younger men as they sit by a campfire in the desert. And as Calabab finishes the story, he points out into the darkness at the wild dogs that are howling in the night.
The dogs are lean and half-starved.
Calabab says that if you throw those dogs a piece of meat, they will just fight over it, gorge themselves instantly, and strut around, giving zero thought to the tomorrow that will surely come, when they will be hungry again.
It is a stark warning. He compares those wild, short-sighted dogs to how humanity often acts when we get our hands on money.
Exactly. We get a little bit of gold, a bonus, a tax refund, a raise, and our instinct is to strut. We buy the flashy tunic or the new car or the extensive vacation. We gratify ourselves instantly, entirely ignoring the future.
We eat the children of our savings before they can ever become an army to protect us.
These ancient Babylonian laws aren't just an interesting history lesson. They are a timeless mirror reflecting your own financial habits right now. Whether it is the lifestyle creep of the 1920s when Clason wrote this book, or the 2020s today as you listen to this, the principles do not care about the era. They only care about execution.
Which leaves us with a final, rather challenging thought for you to mull over as we wrap up this deep dive. Put yourself in Bansir's shoes for a second. If someone walked up to you today and handed you a bag of gold, let's say $1 million, and a clay tablet containing the absolute laws of financial wisdom, your instinct, your ego would immediately prompt you to say that you value the wisdom more. You would say, of course I'm smart enough to read the manual.
But the true test isn't what you say you would do in a hypothetical scenario. The true test is the empirical evidence of your life right now. Look at your bank statements from the last 30 days. Look at your calendar and where you spent your time. Do your daily habitual actions prove that you are studying the tablet, paying yourself first, and building a foundation? Or, when you look at those statements, do you realize that you are just slowly, inevitably emptying the bag of gold you've already been given?
Oof, that is heavy, muddy water to look into. It requires a lot of honesty.
But the cure for a lean purse is right there in the reflection, waiting for you to apply it. Thank you for taking this journey back to Babylon with us. Join us on our next deep dive.